Thank you guys for coming. All right, my name is Craig Thompson, and I think that I know most of you, so I'll keep the introduction brief. But we're thrilled that you guys are here. Thanks for coming. We're excited to talk today about our local food shed. And food shed is a word that I heard not too long ago, so it might be a new word to some folks. And then if you've been saying it your whole life, then sorry, I'm just coming to the party late. So, but we're talking today about our food shed here in Siskiyou County, and how we can contribute to it, and how we can participate in it. And so, the idea of today is to discuss and talk about the benefits to developing our food shed, both economic as well as community, and also to network with each other and talk about the different ways that you know of people contributing to our food shed and how we can partner together. There's so many great things being done here in Scott Valley, in Siskiyou County. Agriculture is by far our biggest enterprise. And so talking about how we can grow that and maximize that to take care of ourselves and to feed our neighbors and to support one another is exciting stuff. So that's kind of the goals for today. So we have a couple presentations, and then at the end of the day, we'll get together and kind of pair up, and we'll do an activity that we're excited about that we'll explain later. But first, we're going to hear from Jason Darrow, and Jason is from the Economic Development Council in Wairika, and he's been a local business owner for many years here in the Siskiyou County, and most recently he's been focusing his time over there on our food shed and on the Siskiyou Harvest Institute that they have, and he's got some exciting stuff to share with us about our food shed and some statistics to share with us to kind of lay a foundation for this economic discussion that we're going to be having. So please, with us, welcome Jason.
Would you like me to use this, or is it okay if I talk like that? Which would you
Do you
prefer?
have to use it for the recording?
No, prefer I use this? Okay, very well. Thank you, Craig. I'm here at the invite of Craig and Kyle. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. I've gotten to know these guys pretty well over the last 6 months to a year, and it's really a pleasure working with them. As Craig said, my name is Jason Darrow. I'm with the Siskiyou County Economic Development Council, and we're based in Wairika. I've been with the EDC, that's the short version of all that string of words, for about 3.5 years. And I've been focusing on food and the food system for about the last year and a half. Prior to that, I was really focused on one small piece of the EDC, and that was a kitchen program that I'll talk about in a little bit. So what I was asked to do today is talk to you about a few things that we're looking at, kind of a broad brush stroke picture of the Siskiyou County food economy and some of the things that we've done so far, and how some of the things that you guys are talking about can have some serious impacts on our local food economy. So the EDC, just as a small bit of background, we have a mission of leading the economic development team to attract, grow, and retain business in Siskiyou County. And we do that through 3 ways. This is the mission set by our board. Those 3 ways are leveraging the county's unique strengths. And if you look at those, that's our natural resources, our agriculture, our people. Strengthen local leadership by bringing together people, business leaders, and to promote collaboration, as well as offering opportunities for leadership development. And then streamlining business development. That's really a purely business focus. How can we make it easier for people in the community to do business? What barriers do we need to overcome, and what regulations do we need to help change to make that easier? So those are really the 3 pillars. Why food? It's pretty obvious. Greg mentioned that food is a big part of the Siskiyou County economy. The economy generates, the Siskiyou County itself generates about $2.1 billion in product each year, and that's all products and services within the county. Food makes up $539 million of that, so it's about 1/4 of the total. And we've got an interest in it because we ran a shared use commercial kitchen for a number of years. We've got an interest in it because we were working with small agricultural producers, small niche producers to do specific products. And with some research that I'd done over the last couple of years, that seemed really narrow in focus. You know, just looking at the small producers and and a small segment didn't seem like the appropriate way to address the economy as a whole. As we looked into this, we've noticed that there's a lot of resources out there. There's a ton of people who know a lot about food, but it doesn't seem to be aggregated really well. And then the market's continually changing, and it's hard to think that an individual producer who's worried about their next crop is going to continue to stay abreast of national and international changes and regulations and updates and goods movements and currency exchanges and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't seem realistic. So if we can help kind of aggregate that information and then bring it down to something that actually has benefit to the county, then that's what we try to do. And really competition now, that's the other piece of what we're looking at. It's no longer you competing with your neighbor. That's not the intent. It's helping your neighbor, supporting the community. Who you're competing with is China. You're competing with Italy. You're competing with Russia. And there's some large commodity goods that we compete directly with, US to other countries. But you're competing for a market space if you're a small producer. And that market space is really in the global economy, not just here in the Valley. So while we looked through this, we rather serendipitously were presented with the opportunity to have a food summit. We had a couple of people who came together and said, hey, we've got some stuff to present. Would you guys like us to present? We said, yes, we would. They said, would you like to be part of the study? We said, yes, we would. And then, by the way, would you like to have the guy who presented the study to us come and present to you? And we said, of course, yes, we would. So we put together a group of speakers for a day-long session that was just designed to bring people together once, to say, hey, this is the Siskiyou County food system. These are some of the highlights of the food system. And through that, we just kind of listed, well, a bunch of things. We had everything from imports and exports to local food to regulations to economic analysis. It was quite a diverse day. But we learned a lot. It was a really cool event, and I'm really glad this event is following that event, because it's really, you can really tell the interest in food, the interest in the food economy from just this second event. The people who attended, and this was important to us, we wanted to tailor not just the people in government or in nonprofit sectors or in education who talk about this very frequently. We wanted to engage people in the community who are farmers and ranchers, and we were fortunate enough to do that. We actually had 44% of the people who attended the event were farmers and ranchers, so it was a pretty good penetration of the people we wanted to reach. One of the people who presented that day was an economist. His name's Ken Meter. Are you, any of you familiar with Ken Meter, Ken's work? A couple people in the back, one person. Okay, Ken Meter runs the Crossroads Resource Center, and it's back east, but he travels all over the globe and talks about agroeconomics. That's what he does. That's his specialty and his focus, and he does it on a large level as well as a small level. I've actually had 2 meetings with him since the Food Summit. He's just really excited about what's going on in Siskiyou County, and he was really excited about this, that there was another event here in the Valley. One of the things that, and he had several slides, and they're all proprietary, so I couldn't use them here in this presentation. But one of the slides that he presented was a really striking one. I'm going to show it to you on the next page. But ag prices, overall, prices have risen over the last 50 years. Everything's gotten more expensive. There's been more revenue generated as a result of that. And you would think, because there's a larger amount of revenue being generated on an annual basis, that there's also a larger amount of profit being generated. And what you're going to find out is that that's not, in fact, the case. So Ken's graph went back to 1922. Mine only goes to 1949. But if you look at 1949, and I'm going to step up here, right there, that gold line is cash receipts. That's everything that everybody brought in. The gray line right there is all of the expenses for doing that particular activity. And then the green line is the profit that they made. That's 1949. So if you track that along, looks like it's declining a little bit. There's a little spike here in what people took home. Up here they lost a bunch of money. Here they picked up some, and now here we are today. And if you look at that line, if you draw that across, it's almost flat. It's a virtually flat line. So we've generated more than, and these are in millions, so this is like 300 billion or something like that in total production right up here now. And the margin, what people make, this little bit down here, has gone from 9 billion in 1949 to 19 billion in 2007. That was when the last ag census was. So it doubled, right? But with the gigantic numbers that we're talking about, it should have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. It didn't. The other thing that's interesting about that, and actually not very interesting, but kind of disappointing, is that if you take 19 billion of 1949 dollars, or excuse me, today's dollars, and you convert that to what the equivalent is, adjusted for inflation, that's only 2.1 billion. So in 1949, people made about 4 times more growing crops and making agricultural investments than they do now. And that's a pretty sad state of affairs. So what are the costs? I mentioned that gray bar, there's costs. What are the costs? There's quite a few of them, and they come from both sides. And you producers are going to know this a lot better than me, so please, if I say something that's not right, catch me on it right away. These are the inputs, and this graph is from 1990 and it runs until 2008. And what it says is that basically for every ag dollar, these are the multiplier dollars of the inputs that have to go in to create that dollar. So it's seed, it's fertilizer, it's fuel, seed, fertilizer, pesticides, fuels, wages. And then this is the crop value right here. And basically what that's showing is that for every dollar input here, it's about a 1-to-1 for the inputs to get that dollar. Here now you're starting to look at about a 2-to-1. Here you're at about a 3-to-1, and here you're at about 4-to-1. So basically the prices of those inputs increased 4 times over that period of time what they were back in 1990. So the same inputs are 4 times more expensive. To put that in a little bit more perspective too, you're getting squeezed from the other side. So throughout the entire United States, consumer spending on food was $709 billion in 2002. That's overall. And some of these things, there's only one study, so you can't match the study to the same timeline that I presented. I'm sorry about that. But for every dollar spent, 19 cents of it went to the producer. So of all the food, all of that $709 billion that was generated in the economy, only 19 cents went to the producer. 81 cents went to other things. And those other things are the cost of transforming the inputs into products and getting them to the grocery stores. So it's the value-added stuff, it's the transportation, it's the refrigeration, it's those types of things. The marketing, that's who got the 81 cents, the farmers got the 19. Out of that 19 cents, their costs to make that 19 cents went up 4 times in that same period. So you can see we're being squeezed from both ends. It's just a quick recap. So you're getting less of the overall ag dollar. Production costs are driven up by increased labor costs, fertilizers, pesticides, and transportation. And then the distribution and processing costs, that 81 cents on every dollar, are going to somebody else. Sounds great. I'll give you good news in a second. So this map is really bad up here. I tried and tried, and it didn't really work out that well, but it's over here as well. And what you can see, I'll do it here. So you can see the growing regions of the county. It's these green regions. That map's probably a little better, but the green regions here, there's you guys in Scott Valley. There's us over here in Wairika, Shasta Valley, Butte Valley, Tule Lake Basin. Those are the growing areas. And obviously each area has its own unique propositions, soil types, growing capability, weather patterns, the works. I mean, there's microclimates all over Siskiyou County. And what we grow. So of all of that ground that's out there, all those green lines pretty much, and a little bit of the yellow, we're growing 597,534 acres of farms. And in 2007, that's 846 individual farms. That's up from the last census. I guess about 50 more people started farms between 2002 and 2007. In 2007, farmers sold 136, and farmers includes ranchers, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to leave out ranchers, that's not the intent, it's just easier to say one word than both, so as long as nobody's offended, I'm including that in the farmer word. 136.4 million of products in 2007. About 80% were crops and 21% or 20% were livestock. As far as rankings go with the rest of the state, we ranked second, and this is acreage, by the way, this isn't value, acreage for potatoes, third for barley, ninth for forage crops. The largest single item that we grow is forage crops. That takes up most of the acreage that we have. And we raised 56,535 head of cattle and about another 7,000 or 8,000 of mixed breeds, horses, pigs, that type of thing. So I did this with a color crayon. I really did. I couldn't do it on the computer, and I spent about 4 hours trying, and I just gave up, and I did it with felt markers. So basically what I did is I took the ag census of 2007, and I looked at the numbers that they produced, and I said, here's the total acreage in an area, here's how much they produced, what's the production value per acre. And you'll see a lot of statistics that talk about what the land value per acre is. That's not what this is. This land value is if you're going to sell it, what that's worth on the market. This is actually what's produced off that land. So we're obviously right up there in that yellowy green blob. We generate $228 per acre of things that we produce. And that's everybody. There's going to be people higher or lower, but that's an average number. You can see that we're right in line with well, there's Modoc, there's Shasta County, run down over through in here, all the way down the eastern part of the state of California. I did Oregon too, and Oregon has a little bubble about right like this, and they're also in the yellow zone. I got really excited when I first started doing this because I took Ken Meter's report, which was a 6-county region, and I went through the report and did the same thing for all 6 counties and said, hey, we're number 2. That's awesome. We're growing $228 an acre worth of product. We're doing really, really well. You know, gosh, there's some up there that are growing $50 an acre and $100 an acre. Then I thought, well, I better check my math, and so I'll do the rest of the state. The yellowy green is this one right here, $0 to $250 an acre. The next one is $250 to $500. That's these guys right here, all of these. $1,000 to $2,500. That's all of these people down here. $2,500 to $5,000, that's these guys, these dark marks. And $5,000 to $10,000 per acre are these 2 areas here. This is by county.
What are they growing in those dark ones?
Good question. Things that are a lot higher value than what we grow. And we're actually going to talk about that, but they're growing flowers is a big one. Fresh cut flowers, that's a tremendous business. Gosh, there's a couple others. Mushrooms. There's about 4 or 5. I'm sorry, I don't have the whole list, but they're mainly flowers, mushrooms, some stone fruits, and berries. Those typically end up being in the higher value buckets. Some of them, because the land mass is so small, like right in here, they won't give you the name of the producer or drill down far enough for you to find out exactly what they're growing. It'll just put it into a basket that's big enough that they don't tell you who it is or what they're actually doing. So it'll say, flowers, plants, and nursery products. And that's about as general or specific as you're going to get. But that's what they are. Flowers, mushrooms, stone fruits, those types of things. Okay, so why? There's lots of reasons. Why are we at 228 and other people are at 1,000? Shorter growing season, water use, access to markets. Legacy considerations, and that is basically we've grown some stuff for a long time, and that's what we grow, and we're used to growing it, and we have the equipment to grow it, the knowledge to grow it, and the people to grow it, so that's what we grow. Known markets, we know that what we're growing right now, we have a market for. It might not be the best market, it might not make us the most money, but we know that if we grow it, we can sell it, and somebody will buy it. And then conversion costs. We might have thought about converting from, let's pick one, grass hay to tulips. That won't work, tulips won't grow here, never mind. Grass hay to daisies. And, but we know that the conversion costs to do that are extraordinarily high. We don't know if we have the capital to do it, and we don't know that we want to take the risk to do it. And then both of those are very valid reasons to not make that investment. So if you were to put all that together and say, okay, so what's the challenge? What are we trying to do? And I know it sounds kind of simple, but here it is. We want to increase the value per acre of production while simultaneously reducing those production costs, those input costs, the pesticides, fertilizer, fuel, labor, and likewise capturing an additional portion of that 81 cents per dollar in the distribution and marketing costs consumed by the market. So grow something that's higher value or produce higher value, do it cheaper, and make more money on the back end. So, how do you do that? There's a couple ways to do this, and again, this is really simple, or it's simplified. And there's a lot more complication to that. I understand. You don't just transition a crop overnight. You don't just do this stuff overnight, but it can be done. So, a couple of ideas. One is value adding, and the other one is direct sales. So, value adding, you're taking what you grow currently and doing something with it. You're putting a labor input or some sort of process to it to create more value for that product on the back end. And it can be anything. If it's alfalfa, it can turn into alfalfa pellets. All of a sudden, it's a higher value product. There's a process that went in there. There's obviously a cost to do that process, but the market perceives a higher value in what comes out the back end of that. Okay, it's as simple as taking apples and turning into applesauce, or apples into dried apples, or berries into frozen berries. And there's a number of examples, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to make the world's greatest sauce recipe new product. It's really taking stuff that people already buy and adding that value. The trick is to add the value here, not add the value elsewhere. Another good example would be cattle. So people participate in branded cattle programs. They know that they can sell their beef if they meet certain criteria. So they sell them and receive this much for selling to a large beef conglomerate. An example would be doing that yourself here, which several people are doing currently. They're raising their own beef, they're processing their own beef, and then they're selling it directly to the consumer, keeping their input costs low, and they're getting more of that dollar on the back end because they're selling directly to you, not anybody in between. Sorry, value adding, and then I jumped into direct sales. So the direct sales would be farm to consumer and farm to school. Those are two very simple and very direct ways of looking at direct sales. You're selling to your neighbor, and you're selling to the school that's in your community. So I did a little bit of math, and I said, so what would happen if we were to increase the value per acre of what we produce? If we were to take it from $228 an acre to $250 an acre, that's that next bump where the color changes and we're not part of the sickly yellow group. We'd add an additional $13 million to the local economy. And that's with changing it by 22 bucks an acre. If we got at it and really went for it and got up to 500 an acre, with the current acreage that we have, we'd add an additional $162 million. And that's on top of the 136 that we already produce. And then if we went gangbusters and did 1,000 an acre, we'd add an extra pretty much $500 million to the local economy. And those are real numbers. I mean, it can be done. There are people out there who are doing far in excess of $1,000 an acre. There's several counties who are doing $2,500 plus, and a few that are doing almost 10 grand an acre. So it's doable. Direct sales. In 2007, Siskiyou County had 0.2% of farm product sales in direct sales. That's half the national average. The national average is 0.4%. So if we use the same math and the same numbers, we produce 136.4 million times 0.2%, that's 2.7 million in direct sales. That's what we do right now. If we reached the national average, we'd be doing 5.4 million. And the key part about this is that all of this post-production money goes directly to the farmer rancher. Directly. You have a little bit of marketing costs, and I don't want to say that it's going to be a complete, dollar for dollar transition, because you got to do flyers and business cards, and there's time, there's websites, there's those types of things. But you can see where I'm going. It's very, very small compared to what we were talking about before. So what would happen if every person in the county purchased $5 in local food a week? And this comes from Ken Meter, and I'm stealing it liberally. So there's 45,000 people. $5 a week would be $11.7 million to farmers right here. If you divide that up by the farms, by the 846 farms that we have, it's about another $15,000 per farm. And that, obviously the math wouldn't work because some people are big farmers, some people are smaller farmers. But again, to aggregate those numbers, it's about $15,000 per farmer if we were just to get $5 per person in local food per week. And that's, by the way, 4.3 times what we're getting right now. So to bring all this together, I think we got some work to do. If you look at the map, you look at what other people are doing, we got some work to do. We have the lowest values per acre of some of the places in the state. And we need to find ways of additionally value adding to what we currently produce, or we need to look at some ways of doing what we do in a different manner. Maybe enhancing through technology. Maybe there's ways of using what's coming out now with this smart technology in ways of managing crops, ways of managing herds, ways of managing feed. They exist. There are technology transfer costs, there are learning curves, but they exist and they might be worthwhile. Prices for inputs are going to continue to rise. We got to find alternate ways of combating those, or creating more value for what we're producing. Rely less on outside inputs, fertilizers, pesticides, and fuel, and increase our direct purchases. Both of those two things are going to help. Remember, one is squeezing at the bottom and saying this is what it costs to produce something and it costs more for every dollar I make. The other one is, gosh, I'm leaving 81 cents on the table every time I sell something. So next steps, what can you do? Continue to work within the ag community. Continue to look towards market opportunities. Have meetings like this and discuss. What I've seen and what I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation today is that I've talked to a lot of people, but a lot of people aren't talking to a lot of people. I'm talking to them, a few people are talking, but what we need to have happen is a lot of people be talking. And we need people to be sharing some of their successes and some of their failures and giving people a little bit of advice like they used to do, and really coming up with ways that we can tell our story better to our friends, to our community, to our families, to everybody about what we're doing, and really talk that up. I think the biggest lesson learned from anything that I've done is that where I've seen the success in other communities, where they're doing the $500 per acre, they're having meetings all the time. People are getting together. The events that you guys are, like you're going to do this afternoon, those are going on all the time. And people are talking about it, and they're talking about it. And then they're embracing some of these new things that are going to be different. I'm not going to say better, I'm going to put that word on it, but different ways of going about appealing to a changing consumer market. And it's those places, those are the ones who are making the impact. So with that,